Life is full of disruptions, unexpected challenges, and constant change. Few professionals understand this better than those working in supply chain and operations. Behind every product, every delivery, and every successful business outcome are leaders making critical decisions under pressure. I am Jaideep Padalwar, author of Engineering the Australian Dream and host of Life Unplugged, where we bring you inspiring stories, practical insights, and lessons from people making a meaningful impact in their fields. Our today's guest is Alexandra Riha, an executive coach who specializes in helping supply chain professionals and leaders unlock their full potential. Through her coaching, she supports executives in moving beyond day to day firefighting, developing leadership capabilities, and creating lasting impact within their organization and teams. Thank you, Alexandra, for joining for the chat today. But before we deep dive into your skills and leadership lessons, let's start with the most important question. Are you happy?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me, Jaideep. I just want to say, yes, I'm happy, but it's not that I'm permanently happy. I'm just like every normal person who goes through phases, and every normal person faces challenges day in, day out. But I think I found my way to happiness, and I strongly believe that we have to work on happiness, to create our happiness. It just doesn't happen on its own. So that's where I'm coming from. So yes, I am happy and I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much. And what was your journey like to reach to a point where you feel this way now?
I think it's also heavily related to positive psychology as a practitioner of this field. I learned very quickly how to develop an engaged life or where it comes from. So engaged and meaningful is very much coming from my end, from the love of learning. So, and if I look back on my entire story, I was always guided by curiosity and love and learning. So yes, I think this is the way how I can maintain it as well. And love of learning is one of my character strengths as well. So I know the more I imply it, the more I work on this learning pattern, the happier I am. Yes, it took me some while to figure it out, how to create happiness for me, but it works, as I said.
Yes. Thank you very much for giving that short intro on what happiness means to you and how you have reached this way. But just wanted to focus on the leadership aspect and the leadership coaching of what you do to help people build their qualities to become an effective leader over time. So just to understand, you have built a niche in helping out supply chain professionals become better leaders, right? So just wanted to know what inspired you to become that and what helped you to actually help people out as well through your learnings.
Yeah, I focus clearly in my coaching on professionals in the supply chain area, because I have been working in supply chain management for the last 25 plus years. I work locally, globally, and regionally, so I have a vast experience here to share, and I was leading teams, and I truly enjoyed that. And I think there is so much involvement and so much potential in it that I'm happy to guide, to coach professionals who are at crossroads or change just jobs. And in addition to that, I think the big advantage I can bring to a session is that I have lived in many different countries. As you can hear, I'm originally from Austria, so I won't get rid of my Austrian accent. I lived in Switzerland. I was in a stance in Moscow. I came to Asia over 20 years ago. So where I built up the supply chain management for a pharmaceutical company. And I have been also in regional management roles for supply chain. So I think this is a good background where I can assist specifically people from the supply chain area, especially professionals who want to develop themselves, who want to reflect, knowing what's going on, having been in their shoes, understanding their pressures. But also, coaching itself is not about the person himself or herself. It's all focusing around the system. And I think that's a clear advantage what I can offer to to help with the system thinking here as well on the reflection path.
But supply chain systems keep on updating and changing, right? Disruptions are so common in supply chain. An election in distant part of the world can change the entire supply chain. A war where we don't have anything to do with, Australia still faces the heat. Then supply chain, standardizing supply chain is so, it becomes very difficult because anything can affect and even sometimes nothing can affect too. There is no demand, then why would anybody want any ships to come to Australia? Then that becomes a different challenge too. So how should we approach them where we have no idea what to do, but you still have to get the job done?
Yeah, you're spot on. A lot of disruptions, interruptions, geopolitics, and this is hitting supply chain. And we are often required to react fast, make a quick decision without having all the information on hand. And for leaders, professionals, it's really tough because we have been trained to take decisions based on maximum information, especially since it has such an impact on the company revenue, reputation, or whatever it is, customers, and so on. So the clear thinking is it's a lot about, whenever you get in this kind of situation, I always say that I have been there as well, is stop, pause, breathe, and give yourself 5 minutes, and then try to react. The best thing is always, and nowadays in supply chain, it wouldn't work to sleep over it. Because from neuroscience, we know if you don't think about a topic extremely in depth, the brain still works on it. So sleeping over it would work fine, but sometimes it's not possible. But we all know that the good ideas or solutions come just abrupt when we do exercise or in the shower and so on. So in this kind, if you face really, and I think it's just a way, we need to get used to cope with that, with complexity, ambiguity, uncertainty. This is the new reality. And I think that's where we have to work together. And that's where we have to get prepared ourselves. It's not just now, time in life. I think it's the new normal that we face.
The only reason why people can't sleep over it because by the time you wake up, the problems would have changed and they would have been upgraded by now.
Yes, correct.
After military, supply chain is the oldest industry in itself because of the things that military needed also needed supply chain to be efficient. And that is how supply chain came in. And supply chain is then in each and every industry, in each and every aspect of daily life, that supply chain almost becomes for granted. Be it from a pen to write on, or to be a TV or a laptop or a giant machinery, it needs supply chain. How do people find themselves to be important? Because everyone does think, and people who are dealing with, they think that they know more than you do.
Yeah, you mentioned a very important point. We're speaking here about humans. Coping, working in these stressful environments or challenging environments where the expectations are high on products for customers or also financial results. I think the criticality is really to build on relationships. Supply chains are run by systems, but they succeed through people. And therefore, relationships, working together is so critical. That's one of my theses. So yes, I'm fully on board for all the technology which supports our profession, but people matter because at the end, they make the decisions. And any system won't reach that level that they can align and build relationships with suppliers or customers. It's luckily still us. And therefore, I think it's important to have this kind of emotional regulation as well. And building on relationships specifically for leaders and for high performers. I can only recommend really to build and to invest in teams, because at the end they are supporting you. And nowadays you can't do it just by yourself. A leader nowadays has to face so many complexities that technically knowledge is not really he or she can rely on. So it's really these people management skills that come to play. And that's much more important in a kind of leadership. But you're right. Supply chain has evolved very much. I still remember my times 20 odd years back, where supply chain was, oh yeah, part of logistics. That's something they are doing there. Or in some regards, it was perhaps the work of the assistant to the general manager who looked after inventories. And so, okay, do we have enough? Do we have enough stock and so on? But the journey was exciting. Nowadays, supply chain has its seat in the boardroom, on the leadership team. And that's the exciting and amazing journey I was able to witness. And I love it. I just love it. It's once again, it's this whole network story. So yeah, nice, exciting life.
That was going to be my next question. How has supply chain evolved over time since you started? Because you have experienced across different regions, across continents, and across time as well. So how has it evolved over time in your experience?
It became more professional. Systems have grown and complexity and the reputation, and I think the different models come and go. But nowadays, it's a clearer department for leadership. So it's heavily supporting company results. And we know that well. And also not only the financial results, but also the reputation. Because if you can't serve your customer, the reputation is gone. And I was lucky. I was really fortunate. I actually started off as a linguist. I started my first university degrees in languages, French and Hungarian, because I wanted to become a translator. I figured out, no, I want to bring people together, but want to contribute to that. So this led me into this interesting field of logistics. That was tough, hard learning to start with my background in humanities. But then I was just fascinated because in logistics, supply chain management, it's about coordinating, building relationships, working together. And the systems that became more and more complex and highly sophisticated, and now with all the AI stuff coming our way, I think, yes, that's great. But luckily, people still matter even in this highly professional field nowadays.
I still remember my first job after engineering was in supply chain management, and I was asked to read everything about supply chain management. And it was completely different. In engineering, you don't learn about supply chain management. And then first definition I read at that time, it stays still with me. It is supply chain management is nothing but transporting a product from A to B. But now it has evolved so much. A to B transportation is the basics and everyone expects you to do it right, regardless of whatever situation, flood, earthquake, or severe weather, or any disruptions, it has to be done. Now, what is about that A to B? How can you actually build efficiencies? How to automate things? And that has completely transformed the entire industry. The interfaces that are there now, it's not just paper, but it is actual systems giving you information and then bringing out strategies to improve on those things.
You know, absolutely, I agree with you. But I think it's getting also more complex because we're looking after manufacturing as well, where you have to work with the supplier. And there are challenges all over the world in nowadays globalization, which also is already part of supply chain. And I was working throughout my whole life in the pharmaceutical supply chain area, which also fitted my own meaningful purpose in life because I wanted to serve patients. So it helped me, but it's complex because you have to deal as well on the supplier side, there are disruptions and so on. And you have the pressure on serving your patients. That was always exciting for me. And you say, yes, it's complex, it changed, but I never regretted any single day of being in supply chain management. And after even 25 years plus, I must say work has never been repetitive. Keep learning. And then I come back, that makes me happy that I can keep learning, but also serving. That's one other part of mine. which comes into play here.
Yes. So now that we have discussed on how it has evolved, in your view, what do you think is still missing in the industry now?
What's still missing is I really want to focus more on people and less on the systems. We're constantly just here, oh, AI, automation, you named it, upgrades here, new system here. And I think that's a bit unfair. We need to talk about people and their challenges with that and help them to keep up with the pace, what's happening there, and also being more kind to people in the supply chain and expectations there. I think it's just a huge pressure, and we need it to reflect here on the systems and system itself. So, and on society to have expectations, because if you go to any grocery shop and you lack your specific brand, you get upset, annoyed if you don't have it on the shelf. You know, it's a kind of new way of thinking, or also looking into the sustainability part, which is so critical, and it's highly impacting supply chain and people, planet, and profit.
Yeah.
You know.
And like talking about the pressure, what impact does the pressure have, any kind of pressure have on leaders and their teams and in decision making?
I think we all know it. Under pressure, our thinking is narrowed down, or we don't hear things outside. We are not capable to grasp the full intent. So the pressure is, okay, once on the business side, it can really lead to this huge financial pressure for a company to work on, but it can really impact your well-being and health. I think it's really critical. And on the other side, again, I'm coming back to the human side. You neglect potentially also your relationships, your families. So, and those are really things we need to look after, because I think they are highly valuable, that make us more human, and that's us. It's us in supply chain or wherever we are. We have to look after ourselves and keep our relationships alive and cherish them.
That's the challenging part of pressure, right? You know that you need to cherish and keep the relationships alive. But when the pressure comes in, the mindset is not actually thinking about those things. You're constantly thinking on not the negative things, but the things that are more important you feel that they are more important than they are. And that actually makes you struggle in all aspects of life. So what mindset shift needs to happen in that pressure moment that you can actually cope up and then compartmentalize things, personal life and professional life?
I think it's clearly about pause, breathe, and try to reflect. I know it's difficult to say, but we are easily carried away, and it's better not to reflect further. We just dive into work, and we have all been there. But at the end, in long term, you have to reevaluate what's creating happiness for you. I remember I shared my thoughts about happiness. Happiness is not happening to you just as such. You have to work for it. You have to create it yourself. You have to figure out what are your values. Are you having a meaningful life? So if someone thinks, okay, this stressful job is my meaningful life, that's okay. But we need to be clear about that. That's really my strong take on that. And reflection is just key, and it's even okay just reflecting on the way, on if you drive from work home, or just taking 5 or 10 minutes a day on relaxing and thinking. I'm not talking about meditation. That's something very sophisticated, potentially in operations difficult to achieve, but just letting it flow, the thoughts that come through. 5 to 10 minutes a day is really helpful.
That is how I started my writing journey as well. Meditation, couldn't do it. For some reason, I couldn't do it. So I thought, okay, what's the next best thing to meditation? It was writing. And then I thought, okay, 10 minutes, only 10 minutes every day I'll write. And then that is how in 2 years, it's a long time, I understand, 700 days, 10 minutes, so 7,000 minutes. In 2 years, then I actually came up with my first book there. And that process is being continued now. And hopefully I'll have a few more published books. Let's see how it goes. Thank you very much for your leadership insight. Just to understand a bit more about the coaching process of leadership. because leadership is not technical. And me personally, the things that I have coached on, it's mostly technical. The knowledge can be easily transferred because those are quantifiable things. You do this, you get this, x plus 1 plus 1 is 2. So that is technical aspects, which is much easier. How do you go about coaching something that is not technical, neither quantifiable, and not everyone actually gets to become leaders? I'm not saying that the only 10% of the people in the world want to be leader, out of which only 10% can actually be a leader and 1% can be actually an efficient leader. So how do you actually help people coaching wise to actually develop those skills to be successful leader one day?
So I love to work with people or professionals who aim to reflect and invest in their own personal development. And the basics for coaching go back into 19. I don't know if you ever heard of Tim Galloway's The Inner Game of Tennis, which says the performance is equal potential minus interference. And if we think of that potential, is that what we have? Everybody has already the potential. We always try to increase our potential, but that's really where people lacking. What's the bigger issue is the interference what happens. And that's where coaching comes into play. That's why you say this interference could be my overthinking or my anxiety, my overwhelm, my drive to be perfectionist. And here I draw on a lot of science from positive psychology coaching that helps me to come up with questions within the coaching area and to identify where this interference comes from. So it's not skills coaching as such, it's really this transformational and personal developmental coaching approach I have here. And to become a leader, self-awareness is the first critical part. And that's part there by reducing interference. The smaller the interference, the bigger is the potential you have. And of course, that's the performance. And once again, I think people are always just focusing too much on the potential. They have it. Most likely, of course, you need the skills for any given responsibility. But it's the interference. This is where the mind comes to play and restricts you.
So when you talk about interference in 1974, there were less interferences. In this current world, interference, distractions, the social media, the notifications on your mobile, they're also a kind of interference. They stop you from thinking to be long in your own thought process, and then something disrupts you. And how can the future leader who wants to get in where there are a lot of interferences, there is potential, but there is higher interference now. How do they actually go ahead with it?
This interference is really your own way of thinking. It's this reflection, being ready to reflect. And that's all. And ready to put time into it. It's not happening by itself because change needs reflection and intention. You need to be intentional what you want to do. And that's happening between the coaching session, that you implement the intention you decided, you agreed on, or you want to do. And that's where I, as a coach, can help and support you in this development. But once again, it comes really down to the person, himself, herself. Are they really willing and do they really want to change? Sometimes it's just a fluke. It's work behind, but it really works. It's proven by science, and that's why I'm so excited about coaching.
No, it does. I just want to know how it works so that people who are completely unaware of it. Like I never actually came across something as leadership coaching. Coaching was always about technical things, but the times have changed and these kind of things are actually flourishing now. And it has actually brought a completely different perspective towards life. And you can actually develop things. You can build on whatever you are to be where you want to be. And when you talked about you like to work with certain kind of people, how do you identify that these people actually need help or they have the potential or they are the right candidate for you?
So I will never push myself or really ask, do you want to be coached? I think I'm really waiting for people to approach me. And we have a chemistry call at the beginning where we talk about it for 30 minutes, if the relationship is there or the trust, because it's all about trust. A coaching relationship builds heavily on trust because you build a working alliance. You need to trust this person, that you should really share openly your thoughts. And coaching sessions are always confidential, but the chemistry needs to happen. So that's how I start. After that, we immediately, I love to go into strengths assessing, because people come always what they don't, where they are poor in, where they are not strong, where they have their weaknesses. But science also proves focusing on your strengths helps you to flourish and to get better and being even more innovative and so on. So, and it helps us as well to have a common understanding where we want to reflect why we react in specific ways, in specific situations, and where we want to come. So it's one step of creating this self-awareness, and then the coachee can decide in which direction he or she wants to go. And that's how normally it works. I work over time, longer time. I love to accompany leaders as well over a longer period. So it's a minimum of 3 to 6 months where it's needed to see really an impact.
That is a short time. I thought it would take years, but 3 to 6 months, it's
depending. It's depending what's really already there and how and where you want to go. People have different goals, and it's bigger goals, smaller goals. If you really want to develop your career, it takes this takes long, and that takes on ongoing professionals, which I like to do as well. So I have some clients of this. It's also rewarding. For me, this is where I learn from this relationship as well. But I can serve the coachee. That's the other part where it builds a meaningful life for me. I keep learning, but serving in the same way. So yes, it's a process, but it always comes down, are you really ready for it? And do you really want to change?
So what for coaching to a person who doesn't know his weaknesses? It's not that I don't have any, I just don't know my weaknesses and I only keep on focusing on strengths. So how would that reflection look like?
I think that's already a wonderful start, because then you are among the few people who focus on their strengths, because by science we know you flourish. If you apply your strengths, you can be really inspirational, you have energy, and time flows, and the very famous flow concept you might have heard, where you're just absolutely absorbed in your work, whatever it is. If you are able to use in your work life, private life, or whatever is your strengths, that's a meaningful, engaged life you feel. So it's nice. Most people come and start, I want to improve here, I want to do this, and I don't. And then saying, hang on, hold. Why? If it's skills, of course, I think personal strengths won't help you to manage SAP or any other ERP system. That won't work. You need this skill there. But it's really about, is it your curiosity? Is it that you like to work with teams together? Is it you want to try new things? All this kind of stuff. Are you about honesty in the conversations, in the team meeting? Then, so there is a lot of values behind there, and just discussing it. I work here with the Riha Values Institute. It's a free survey you can take. It's a highly tested one. I think over 1,000 studies. And it gives us a common ground to discuss even the terminology, because people would understand different things under different terms. So that's very helpful. And then we can build, or that's how we build the events they want to reflect on or change, and why they reacted, or how they want to react, and understand themselves much better as well. Perhaps they're overusing or underusing their strengths as well. That has also an impact on their quality of work or private life.
And so the current hot topic in everywhere is AI now. And there is certain kind of perception in leadership in AI as well. Because leadership had a journey earlier where There would be employees, there would be mid-level managers, senior level managers, and the executive managers then. But now the junior management, the role of actual junior management would be upskilling their underlings and being the conduit between the senior management and the employees on what's happening and reporting. With AI coming in, upskilling is already done with AI. You don't need someone to upskill them. And that closing that gap with data and report flows, that AI can also do that. So there would be less junior management roles available in future. It is what I read through one of the reports. And then that would actually translate into that whenever someone gets into a leadership position, it would be much higher than they were actually trained to do. So in that case, only the ones who can do will reach there. And the training that doesn't happen then from the ground up, how do people, the younger generation, how do they tackle this problem?
Yeah, no, my observation is that younger generations have a different stance to work, or that's what I understand. The younger generation, they're looking for meaningful work mostly. Yeah. So of course everybody aims to reach any hierarchy, and I think it's more about the meaningfulness, what they are doing, how they contribute to societies, and career ladder is there. But I think with this open mindset, there is always a space to start as a junior leader, and you will be still needed because it's the different mindset, different generation, better capabilities to adapt to circumstances. I think the younger generation is much better equipped to work with internet and all the automations in their AI. And we really need to give them also the opportunity to build these people skills, which are so highly critical, because all decisions will still remain with humans. Every flow will be okay. You can use automation, you use AI, IT, anything, but decisions are still being made, have to be done by humans.
That is true. Accountability has to be there. You can't make AI accountable for anything. That is just to, one of my main questions, usually what I focus on is the daily habits of leadership. So what daily habits, if somebody who doesn't have that confidence that they could reach to that position, what daily habits should they start doing it from now, that in 10, 20 or 30 years time, when they get that opportunity, they will be ready to be a leader someday?
I think what's important is keep asking questions. That keep learning by asking the questions. Put up your hands. Raise your hands for any other opportunities. And it's also for an opportunity that doesn't need to go up vertically. You can be laterally moving around as well, because that's how you gain experience. I think that's a very critical point. And really work on your social skills as well, to become an authentic leader, not someone who gets trained at a point in time to lead people. So I think this is very important, and also accept setbacks or pushbacks. But they are part. It's a huge growth opportunity with this open mindset. You get up and go again. I think this is fundamental for that. In most cases, you have to look after yourself. You have to raise your hand for opportunities, and just don't go or continue always immediately going up the ladder. It's also naturally a lot to learn, and it's a much nicer space as well to work and extend your capabilities and skills and relationships, networks, and so on.
Yeah, that is, and networking is the most important thing that I feel. And that actually makes you learn so much throughout, and things that you have never even come across, you can learn those as well through networking. Just to close out, thank you very much for your time and your insights on leadership and supply chain management. How, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how would they reach out to you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm also having my own website, Alexandra-Riha.com. Or perhaps you want to sign up to my Flourishing Supply Chain newsletter on LinkedIn as well.